It's the last Tuesday of the month. Let's do a book wrap up. Hello, everybody. I'm Tabitha. Welcome to the channel. Once a month, last Tuesday of the month, I do post the reviews from all the books that I've read in the month. Here's a few things you need to know before we jump in. First, these reviews are my opinion. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. You certainly don't have to agree with me. If you've read one of the books I'm reviewing today, I want to know your opinion. Drop it in the comments so that I know how you felt about it. Just please remember to respect my opinion and the author's time and effort. Also, I read everything. When I say that, I mean I read different release years, age categories, genres. I read indie and traditional. I read everything. If your tastes are a little more finicky, and there's nothing wrong with that at all, you'll want to pay attention to the last part of my review called Who Would Love This? That will tell you whether or not this fits what you're looking for. If you have recommendations for me, maybe based on a review, there's something you think I would love, or maybe you're an indie author and you just want to tell me about something you wrote that's like what I read. Drop the name of the book and the author into the comments, and I will look at adding it to my TBR. I should warn you, though, that my TBR is 350 books strong right now. Yes, that's 50 books higher than it was in May. Sorry, not sorry. Lastly, I make these videos as I go. I just add them on. Combine that with the fact that I have a goal to read 104 books this year, and these are some of the longest videos I post to my channel. So I should probably stop wasting time by adding more to them. Go. Okay, first one for June, we're talking about this one right here. So it was an audiobook, Between the Lines by Jodi Picoult and Samantha Van Leer. This book was published in 2012 by Simon Pulse. People on Goodreads call it fantasy romance, which I find kind of interesting. I would have called it fantasy. What if the characters in a book are merely actors forced to run the same play over and over again? Great premise, right? Like that grabs our attention right away. So what didn't I like for the story? The ending felt rushed and unrealistic. It was like we had these character arcs going along and we had these assumptions about a character, and the ending felt rushed and very out of character for some of them, which was frustrating, I think. The other thing I'm going to say about the ending really quick is that the whole book seems to have a family love thing going on. I don't want to go into too much detail and spoil it for you, but it seems to have themes about how important the love of a family is and how supportive family can be, and the ending goes completely against that, which may have been intentional. It missed with this reader for sure. And you know, I'm just going to give a one word, and I don't want to spoil anything, and if you've read it, you're going to be like, yes. Mermaids. As a character in general, these mermaids didn't work for me, I'm going to say. Some of those seem to be hard-hitting this time, which they aren't usually, and I don't want you to think that means I didn't like it. There was a lot I did like. So like I kind of said in the beginning, the overall concept for this book is awesome. It's awesome. What a cool concept that when you pick up a book to read it, the characters are running that play for you and running those lines for you. And that is a cool concept, and any bookworm, book dragon, whatever you want to call us, is going to love that concept completely. The fun of the actors rushing through the book when the book is open to try to get to the right scene, or those scenes were really well done, like hanging on letters, and the bit with the spider, I don't want to ruin it, but there's a bit with the spider, that was really cool. I mean, just really playing up on that idea of the book was the best part, and I truly, truly loved that part. As a side note, I listened to it as an audiobook. The audiobook was awesome. I'm going to highly recommend this as an audiobook, even more so because I read some reviews online and Goodreads and things like that. And apparently the book has different fonts and different colors and different things that are really distracting to a lot of readers. And that has been a big negative point for a lot of people. The audiobook obviously doesn't have that, but the audiobook is not narrated by one person doing multiple voices or characters. The audiobook is narrated by different actors reading for each role, which I thought was really cool. And so I highly recommend the audiobook. Who should read this? If you are a fairy tale fan, I'm going to suggest you go with this one, because Between the Lines, remember I said the premise is the characters or actors forced to run it. The play they're forced to run is a fairy tale, so that's cool. If you have ever been a reader who loves a character, like you feel like you know them and you love them, you will love this book, right? Because that's the idea here, that they're real people and they're actors playing a part. If you're a hopeless romantic, I'm going to say go with this one. It's got a lot of that running through it. I went 3 stars on this one. Obviously, I already explained some of the things I didn't like, but in addition to that, I think not everyone will love this book. So it falls into that niche audience category, which I tend to score 3 stars. I think it's worth a read if you fit those things I said, that you would love it. So if you love fairy tales, you've fallen in love with a book character before, and you are a hopeless romantic, I think you're going to love this book. But again, I'm going to recommend audiobook, especially if you feel like different fonts and colors might distract you, because I've heard that that happens in the book. Stephen King's Storm of the Century. It is 376 pages long, and it was published in 1999 by Pocket Books. It is adult as an age category, but genre, I would say it's like a horror. I would call it horror. A lot of people called it thriller on Goodreads. They're calling it the Storm of the Century, and it's coming hard. The residents of Little Tall Island have seen their share of nasty Maine nor'easters, but this one is different. Not only is it packing hurricane force winds and up to 5 feet of snow, it's bringing something worse. Something even the Islanders have never seen before. Something no one wants to see. I am 20 years late to this party because this book came out in 1999. This is a mini-series and is written in screenplay format. The idea came to him as an image, as a TV show, and so he wrote it as a mini-series, and I have never seen the mini-series. So if you have, your reaction to the book might be very different. Okay, so what didn't I like? I'm going to be honest with you, I couldn't think of a single thing. Normally, it's a 5-star book if I can't think of anything. This is not. And the only reason why is because I can't say this would appeal to everyone in the world. That screenplay format is going to be really rough for some people. I had no problem with it. In fact, I have read books by King before that I think are too wordy. I love you, Stephen King, but I have sometimes thought he is too descriptive. He gives you too much. You're like, okay, that's enough. I just want the story. I feel like because this was a screenplay, he was limited there. So the screenplay thing didn't bother me at all, but it might bother some of you. So just be warned that you are picking up a screenplay. It's a different format. Okay, so let's talk about what I did love. I loved the suspense. This suspense is classic King at his absolute best. I didn't see the ending coming. Spoiler, there's deaths, but I didn't see all the deaths. I didn't have them predicted. If you had asked me in the beginning who was going to make it to the end of the book, I may have been wrong about a few people, and that's cool. So I love to be surprised and shocked. It was great. The second thing I loved is that I feel like the scariest books are books that explore villains who actually scare me. They shock me and they scare me, and they're either unpredictable or their predictability makes them scary because I know they're capable of these things they're promising. And this villain is, boom, he's great. He's exactly that, and I loved him. Good versus evil is my absolute favorite Stephen King theme. The Stand, right? You Stand fan. Good versus evil is my absolute favorite. And Stephen King tends to take good versus evil to like a biblical area, and I love that. This went there, and that was really cool, which probably is why I loved it. Mike is a solid main character. If I had to describe Mike to somebody, I would say he is the best in everybody. All the best characteristics of all the good people in the world, and throw them into one person, and you get Mike, which is kind of cool. So who should read this? Boy, this would be 5-star if it wasn't for the screenplay thing. So I'm going to say, if you can handle a screenplay and you're a Stephen King fan or a fan of The Stand or a fan of thrillers in general, or you like to be scared, or you're a fan of like biblical good versus evil battles, I mean, read this one. But all of those go with the caveat of if you can handle a screenplay, because it is in a screenplay form. People on Goodreads who rated it, almost exclusively, who rated it 1 or 2 stars, all said it was because of the screenplay form. So know what you're getting yourself into here, and you will love it if you know you can handle that. So I went 4 stars on this one. It should have been 5. It was 5 for me, but slightly more niche audience. Please don't tackle this one unless you can handle a screenplay. That's it. Hello. We are here together today because we decided to do something cool for the next book for the month of June. We took a road trip recently as a family, right? Mm-hmm. And on the way there, we listened to an audiobook, and on the way back, we listened to an audiobook. Yep. So Julie here is going to help with our reviews today because actually the books were middle grade children's books, which is right up her alley. Right, Julie? Yeah. Okay. The first one we read, the one that we read on the way there, so this will be the 3rd book for June. This was called My Teacher is an Alien by Bruce Coville. And like I said, we listened to it as an audiobook. This book was originally published in 1989. That's before you were born. Yeah, by Minstrel Publishing, and it was 128 pages the first time around. This edition that we're listening to with minor updates, was published in 2005 by Aladdin. The print copy would be 160 pages. This audiobook version is done by Full Cast Audio, and it was released in 2016. If you've never heard of this book, as you can imagine by the title, it is a children's science fiction book. Susan can tell that her new substitute teacher is really weird, but she doesn't know how weird until she catches him peeling off his face and discovers Mr. Smith is an alien. So I start with what we didn't like, so we can end on a positive note.
Okay.
So why don't you look at the camera and tell everybody what you didn't like.
So what I didn't like was that he was an alien.
I mean, it was in the title.
Yeah.
Okay, so you also said you didn't really like the ending.
Yeah.
Don't give the ending away. But you didn't really like the ending? She wasn't crazy about it. Didn't really like the ending. But we did learn when we went on Goodreads that this is a first book, and there's a second book. So we're wondering if maybe we get a little more resolution in the second book. Maybe.
Yeah.
That's what she didn't like. She didn't feel like it resolved itself the way she wanted. Okay, so tell them some of the stuff that you did like.
I liked that it felt like a joke.
But it turned out to be real, huh?
Yeah.
Even though we didn't really like the ending, we were surprised by the ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we talked about that, how it's kind of cool to be surprised, even if you don't really like where the surprise goes. Mm-hmm. Right? Who was your favorite character?
I loved Peter because he liked books.
He likes books and he likes science. Yeah, and he also, out of all the characters, I thought it was interesting that she picked Peter as her favorite. He seems to be the character who stuck most to character. Like, he didn't change a lot. He was the same guy, page 1, as he was on the last page. So, that's why we liked him. Overall, our rating, we went with 5 stars. 5 stars, because we feel like this book would appeal to a really wide audience. And it's especially recommended for some fun summer reading for your elementary kiddos out there, or as a fun kick off the yearbook if you're a teacher and you're looking for something fun to start your school year with. Wouldn't that be fun? Mm-hmm. And the audiobook, very cool. We recommend that, don't we? The audiobook is done by Full Cast Audio, so they do many voices and many actors reading for parts, which is really cool. Should we just keep going?
Monsters Ring.
The Monsters Ring. Also by Bruce Coville. That is a terrible shot of the title, I'm sorry. The Monsters Ring by Bruce Coville. Originally, this book was published in 1982, so some of you may have read the original by Turtleback Books, and it was only 87 pages. This edition that we listened to with updates was published in 2003 by Aladdin. The print copy would be 105 pages. We listened to the audiobook, which was also done by Full Cast Audio, in 2003. This book would be a children's fantasy. It involves magic, so fantasy. It all starts when Russell Craniker buys a monster's ring from weird old Mr. E-Lives. Russell is sure the ring is just a silly magic trick, but he follows the instructions anyway and slips it on his finger. Then he whispers the magic chant, twists the ring once, and suddenly Russell has become a monster. What didn't you like?
Oh, yeah. That Russell didn't read the directions and then he turned into a monster.
Although, Mom thinks that that's pretty accurate for kids. Yeah.
Because they don't
read directions. It's also a good lesson. So some of the chapters in the middle got a tiny bit slow or repetitive. She didn't say this one. I was judging it by the fact that I actually had to pause it for a minute because someone took a nap in the middle.
It got slow and I got tired.
Yeah, so some of the chapters got a little repetitive in the middle. Let's talk about what we did like. This is my note. I loved the note from the author at the end of the audiobook. Bruce Coville explains why he made some of the changes, like including some new characters when he redid the book later in life. And he also explains how to pronounce Mr. E-Lives' name, which actually I thought was really cool and had a really great reason. So if you happen to nab the copy that has an author's note, or if you're listening to the audiobook, don't turn it off before that. That was kind of cool. Your favorite character?
Russell.
Ooh. Okay, why was Russell your favorite character?
Because he went through all the stages and saw what all of them did. I thought he was a little foolish.
Okay, so a little foolish, but she also said she thought he was adventurous and brave. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So good character, I think. He learned some good lessons too, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, lots of lessons. We also liked the ending to this one. This one had a good ending. Yeah. We think it wrapped things up quite nicely. Our overall rating
is 4 stars.
4 stars. So we did take one little star away. So we went 4 stars. Because we thought this was a little more of a niche audience, a little more specific audience, right? Because you're not going to like this one if you don't like monster books or if you get scared really easily. Yeah. So we said if you like monster books and you're not really easily scared, This is a great summer read for you, and we recommend Monsters Ring by Bruce Coville.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Anything you want to add?
That it was a great book, but if you are a little foolish and a little scared, then don't read it.
And actually, Julie had never listened to an audiobook before, so what do you think of audiobooks?
I like them.
All right, that's it for us. I'm sure I'll be back with more books. Say bye to Julie.
Bye.
Really excited about it. So this was the book, A Spark of Light by Jodi Picoult. So this book clocks in at 386 pages, including extras. There's an author's note that I recommend reading when you get to the end. There's a bibliography, so if you're interested in her research, which she talks about a little in her author's note, this is the section I think was not in all the books. So there's like a reader's guide and a question and answer section with Jodi Picoult at the end of this particular one. So if yours has it, it's kind of cool to read it, but honestly, a lot of the answers were covered in the author's note too. So 386 pages, including those extras. It was published in 2018 by Ballantine Books, and I would classify it as adult contemporary, as a lot of Jodi Picoult's are. Okay, so here's my quick little synopsis, right? If I had to give you a synopsis. The day seems to be a normal day at the Women's Reproductive Services Clinic until a gunman arrives. So beware if you're triggered by things like abortion or violence, you're going to have that. Okay, so what didn't I like? Like a lot of people who reviewed this one, the ending. I wanted a bit more from some of these viewpoints than we got, and I know that was intentional, and even before I read the author's note, I know she did that on purpose. I have done it myself, but I wanted a little bit more from that ending. Some of the feelings that you get in this book, as always with Jodi Picoult, are not positive. They're important. With a topic like this, discomfort itself is important. So I was okay with it, but that doesn't make it easy to read. Okay, so what did I like? I love the varied stories. She tells this one from, I think in the author's note she said 10 viewpoints. I didn't count. But I love that. She's a master at that. That's a hard thing to do if you're not good at it, but she's very good at it. The timely and important moral questions, which of course is what we've come to expect from Jodi Picoult, right? She's going to stick us in the middle of a moral, controversial issue, and she's going to make us feel things, and that she knocks that out of the park with this one. She's dealing with abortions and things like that, and it's timely and it's important. This one, maybe even more so than her other ones, there's some obvious research that had to go into this topic in order for her to be able to write about it, and I appreciate that. And I not only did I appreciate it, I loved it. I love the way it came forward in the book, and that was awesome. So who should read this? Keeping in mind that our country is having a current abortion, I'm going to call it a debate. Argument would probably be more realistic, but a current abortion debate, I would say, everyone, if you have an opinion on it, if you want to read a little bit about one side or the other, whether it's your own side or the side you don't know a lot about and you want to be informed, this is a great book for that. She's going to make you feel things and think things that maybe you wouldn't have. I'm going to recommend this one. You should grab this one. Plus, Jodi Picoult, you can't go wrong. She writes wonderfully. My rating. So I went 5 stars because it's important. But I do want to say really quickly that if for some reason you're the kind of person who's like, look, I'm not going to read everything you tell me to read. I just need you to recommend one really good controversial book because I can't handle all of them. This wouldn't be my one. That would be Small Great Things. Spark of Light, I would call like 4.8 stars, 4.75 stars. So it's important and it's up there. But if you told me you were only going to read one of the books I recommended, it wouldn't be the one. That's silly though. Please read them all. So anyway, it's good and it's up there, and I said 5 stars, and it's important and everybody should read it. But for sure, if abortion or violence are triggers for you, you may want to avoid this one. So the 6th book for the month of June. This one is called The Ravenwalker. It says it's the first one in the Oceans of Humanity series. It's from W.S. Ryan. Nice cover. It's 2018 release, and it was an indie book published with, I think, Kindle. And the print version would be 234 pages, but I do have the ebook version here. I would classify it as an adult romance adventure. Can I say that? So what didn't I like about this one? There's no chapters, so it's 234 pages with no break, no divider. And as a serious reader, that bugged me, I think, because I like to know, hey, this is going to be a good spot to take a break, put a bookmark in, get a cup of coffee, something like that. Sometimes there were no dialogue tags, which, you know what, this is a big controversial thing in the writing community. Do we use said? Do we use something more creative? Do we not use them at all? For this book, I would have recommended using something because it got confusing. You have an ensemble cast. We maybe have 4 or 5 characters in a room, and it's almost like, okay, who just answered him? So it got a little confusing at a couple of spots. My biggest didn't like about this one, and I say this with all the love in the world for W.S. Ryan and the story, and we'll get to that in a minute. Remember, I start with negative, I end on positive. This reads like a fan fiction. The first scene, you're thrown into something in the middle of an action, which can be done and can be done right. But I don't know anything about these characters, so it was very confusing a little. So what did I like? Because that's more important, right? What did I like? The themes in here are solid. Like, there's some solid themes here about knowing who you are and standing up for yourself and having pride in who you are. And there's some solid themes there. I will say that there are, so the romance here happens to be between two males who wouldn't necessarily have been like accepted for that. And that's used to an advantage to make that theme really strong about learning to accept yourself and who you really are and be okay with that and have pride in that. And that's there, and I really like that, and that's cool. There's also themes about knowing your own strength and standing up for what you believe in. The themes were so solid themes, and I really like that. The romance is good. It's not overdone, and I like the subtlety in it. That was really cool. The characters have promise. They really do. I wanted to like them, but I needed more background into who they were and where they came from and things like that. So that's my overall. I would say 2.5 stars. Goodreads, I did 3 because I round up. Who should read this one? If you are, if you like adventure stories, you're looking for something different, yeah, this is a good one. The action is solid. The action is there. Okay, so book 7 for the month of June, that would be this one, Hunting Annabelle by Wendy Hurd. This is 288 pages strong, published in 2018 by Mira, which is a division of Harlequin Enterprises. I would say age category adult, genre psychological thriller. Sean Suh is done with killing. After serving 3 years in a psychiatric prison, he's determined to stay away from temptation, but he can't resist Annabelle. Beautiful, confident, incandescent Annabelle, who alone can see past the monster to the man inside, the man he's desperately trying to be. Then Annabelle disappears. What didn't I like? I'm reaching here. It's dark and gory. I didn't mind, but I see a lot of people on Goodreads who did, and I can see some of you might. So know what you're getting into with this one. It is dark and gory. She says psychological thriller. She's not kidding. So what did I like? This is going to be, there's a lot. What did I like? The creepy factor is amazing. I love when books take creepy to a new level, and this did. Sean is an unreliable narrator. So if you're a writer who's doing a little research into what the heck an unreliable narrator is, I'm going to highly recommend this book because Sean is an unreliable narrator. Let me give you a quote. He says, "I suppose every villain is the hero of his own story." What else did I like? The twists and turns in this book are amazing. I like to be surprised. I like it when a book catches me off guard and I didn't predict it or plan it, and this one for sure did. Highly twisty, highly turny, and highly unpredictable, which is awesome. I'm going to call this book, if I had to summarize this book in one word, I would say it's haunting. It's going to stick with you. You're going to imagine it, think about it later. It's haunting. It's great. There are bad people at the heart of this book. And in my opinion, throwing bad people at the heart of the book really lets us explore the human psyche and the human mind in a great way. But Wendy Hurd does a good job of that. But not only that, she explores violence in a really cool way. So for me, this was 5 stars. Who should read this one? If you are a fan of villains, if you've ever connected with a villain, watched a movie, read a book, if Loki is your favorite Avenger, if villains are your thing, then you're going to like this book because it takes a not good person who has potential to be a villain in another story and throws them into a book as the main character, which is really cool. If you like thrillers and mysteries, but maybe you're looking for something a little different, or maybe you just love all thrillers and all mysteries all the time, I'm going to recommend Hunting Annabelle. It was 5 stars for me for sure. I think it will appeal to a wide audience of people. I'm just going to give the caveat or the warning like I sometimes do. If you are not okay with villains, if you are not okay with violence, you are not going to be okay with this book. But if you do like villains and you do like violence, I have a book recommendation for you. You need to read Hunting Annabelle by Wendy Hurd. For book number 8 for June, this is The Elephant in the Room by J. Franklin Green. It is a 2017 book. It was published by Lulu. It's an indie published book. He's a local Arizona author. It's 276 pages, and if I had to describe it, I'd say it's adult as age category, and the genre It's a little hard to describe, but I'd say like a dystopian, almost apocalyptic kind of, but literary. I know that's strange. The genre is tough on this one. So our synopsis. So Adam Barthold is a deeply flawed man who just may play an important point in the future of mankind. Okay, so what didn't I like? There are typos, a lot of typos in the back half of the book. The front half of the book didn't seem to suffer from this problem, but the back half did. So that was interesting. Some of the characters in this book are the same. They seem to be the same characters. Some of them even have the same name as characters in his children's book, Lola, Sam, and the Jackalope. But they're not supposed to be the same characters. So I think the only reason why that bothered me is because I actually read the children's book, Lola, Sam, and the Jackalope. Plus, I think some of them are based on real characters in his real life, and that's why we see that overlap. Other stuff I didn't like. Yes, it's a book for adults. However, he seems to have a strange fascination with nudity in this book, and that bugged me just a little bit. I kind of wanted it to stop coming up. The ending felt really rushed, and the timeline was confusing. So the book says 2035 right at the top of the book. So 2035 must have been an important date, and it was supposed to play a part in the book, but I have to be honest, I finished it, and I don't know the importance of that date. I would have picked a different date. The date came up, 2035, but I would have picked a different year as the important date. So the timeline was really confusing, I think. So let's talk about what I did like, because I like to end on that. This story reads like you're sitting down with a little old man who's going to tell you his life story. It's complete with song lyrics that he randomly busts in with, and stream of consciousness sections, and interrupting occasionally, and it reads like a little old man is telling you his life story. That was kind of cool. I kind of liked that. It's a very literary kind of story. It has some moments where it has really pretty language and very good descriptions, which is not what I was expecting. Even having met John personally, it's not what I was expecting from him. So that was kind of cool. The prologue, the very, very first introduction you get to the story, the prologue is great. It pulls you into the story in a great way, and it gets your interest right from the start, and you're clear that you're going to be in a kind of post-apocalyptic world, and that's really cool. I also, and I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm just going to say, and this seems a little vague unless you've read it, I like the rules of the people. I'm going to leave it at that. So who should read this one? If you like literary books, and like Glass Castle kind of literary books, and you want to try something apocalyptic, but that has that same literary draw to it, I'm going to suggest this one. I ended up giving it 3 stars, but it would have been 4 for me if there hadn't been so many typos in the ending. So 3 stars, but we're going high 3, like 3.5 maybe. And then the 9th book, so this is the 9th book for June, The Deceivers by Kristin Simmons. It is a 2019 release by Tor. It's 377 pages, although Goodreads said 384, but I have the same hardcover they were talking about, so I'm not sure why. It is a young adult, and I would call it mystery, maybe thriller. I'm leaning towards mystery. Goodreads lean towards thriller. A synopsis, without spoiling, I'm just going to say Bryn is a con artist. She's desperate to escape her life, and then she's recruited for Vale Hall, which is an exclusive school for con artists. So what didn't I like? If I had to reach for something, say maybe Pete is just a little bit cliche. But on playing devil's advocate, cliches are there for a reason. And so I think I liked him, but I could see some people complaining he's cliche. So what did I like, or what did I love in this case? It's about a con artist school. Hello? I mean, this is great. This is great. It's about kids who go to school to learn how to be con artists. It has a very Ocean's 11 vibe to it, which I really liked, but it's with teenagers, so you get that young adult side romance kind of thing going on, but with an Ocean's 11 vibe. I just really, really liked that. Really liked it. Could not put this one down. The characters in this book have huge depth and lots of secrets, which is what I love in YA, specifically in mystery. So basically, who should read this one? Everyone. If you're a YA fan, if you're a fan of intrigue, if you like movies like Ocean's 11, if the idea of a con artist school appeals to you, go get it. This was a 5-star for me, and I'm going to highly recommend this one. It was very, very, very well done. Time for the month of June is this one, Swipe by Evan Engler. Full disclosure, I chose this one for the cover. It's 275 pages, including the author's note, which I highly suggest you don't skip. The author's note is at the end for a reason, so don't go find it and read it first. It's published by Thomas Nelson. It is a young adult. It has sci-fi elements, but, you know, I was thinking about it in dystopian sci-fi elements. I don't know. I called it sci-fi online, and that's probably pretty close to accurate. It was published in 2011. Basically, Logan is just months away from being marked. I'll explain that in a minute. But he can't shake the feeling that he's being followed. So marked. So this is one way that it shows it. I'm not sure if that's what it would look like. It's never really described in the book what exactly it looked like, so you have to kind of go off the image. But it's exactly like it sounds. You get to be a certain age and you get marked. Let's start with what I didn't like. I wanted it to be like Barcode Tattoo, but with its own twist. So for me, it was a little too much like Barcode Tattoo right now. Wasn't enough of a twist, wasn't enough different. If you haven't read Barcode Tattoo, that obviously wouldn't bother you. But for me, it was a little too much like that. And it was also a little too predictable for me, just a tiny bit too predictable. Again, maybe because I've read so much in this genre and so much of this stuff. It had a slow start. Stick with it. It gets better, but it does have a slow start. It felt like it was a little bit of a slow start. And I'm not crazy about Logan's parents and some of the decisions they make. And I'm hoping that comes back later. Okay, so let's get to what I did like. The ending. I told you it gets better. The beginning is really slow. The ending is great. The ending is really well done, which is why I added the second one to my TBR. A lot of times, the second book in a series like this will actually be better, right? Because it had that slow start in the world building in the beginning, and then you get kicked into high gear in the middle of the book. And so the second book is great because it's going off that speed that was at the end of the first. So that's the feeling I'm getting from this, is that the second one's going to be even better. I mentioned I didn't like Logan's parents, but I do like his friends. And in a YA novel, having a good, solid friend group around you is really important, I think. Kids who have that relate to it, and kids who don't have it like that. We feel like they're our friends or whatever. I really like Logan's friends. They were well written in this. And I did like the slight difference in some characters' cliche normal roles. I like that. I like that you saw some of these normal roles, things that kids really do, but yet this was a little different twist on it. So I like that. The characters in this book, basically, I guess is what I'm saying, really sold this book for me. So who should read this one? If you are normally a fan of dystopian books, if you like dystopian books, and you're looking for a new series, why not go with this one? It was a great series. If you are a teacher, if you are a high school or a middle school teacher who is looking for literature, book studies that you could pull in that may have some links to some bigger topics that have to deal with government overreaching and things like that. There are some, government overreaching kind of themes there, but this does a good job of presenting both sides. And, in other words, why you would want the government to do that, why you would want this, and then why you wouldn't. And they keep the language clean and all that. So it's okay for middle school too. If you, in general, like the idea of this technology, so Barcode Tattoo is one I've already mentioned. My book, Projection, it's nothing like this, but it deals with the idea of that technology being a requirement almost. If you like technological books like that, if you like techie type things, this is a great one. This is taking it to new levels, and the technology they have is really cool. Anyway, my final rating for this one, I went 4 stars. Beginning alone would have been a 3. Ending would have been leaning more towards a 5, so I'm averaging it out, and we're going with this book as a 4-star book. Recommended for dystopian fans, specifically those of you who like tech in your books. Okay, my final book for the month of June. Let's see, this was published in 2012 by St. Martin's Griffin. It is the print version, 302 pages, but I did an audiobook again this time, as I've done before for this series, I think. In fact, this is the 10th book in the House of Night series. So this is the book we're talking about. Sorry about the glare. This is Hidden by PC and Kristin Cast. So again, 10th book in the series. Cool cover. Cool cover. I reviewed the 9th book, I think, last month on my book wrap-up. This is the 10th. So last month, I incorrectly said that I had rated all the books in the series 3 stars, and that was really lazy of me to guess that and not go looking. So I went looking to kind of redeem it a little bit for you this month. So let me be completely honest with you. Most of the books in this series up to this point have been 3 stars, with the exception of book 2, Betrayed, was 4 stars. And I think that's because the characters were a little more developed at that point, and they started going in a direction I thought was going to be really cool. So it was 4 stars. And then the 5th and 6th books, so that is Hunted and Tempted, those were each also 4 stars. And I went back and looked. I can't figure out why. Something was happening at that point, some sideline that I might have liked. It may have been the Red Vampire side storyline plots kicking up there. I'm not sure. But I liked where that was going and the idea that we might be playing with that a little bit more. And then it didn't play with it the way I wanted. And in fact, the last 3 books in the series, so that would be 7, 8, and 9, the last 3 that I read in the series, 7, 8, and 9, have gone back to being 3 stars each. Hidden is the first one that I've done on this channel that is 2 stars. 2 stars. Let me explain. What didn't I like? This series, synopsis for the whole series for those of you who haven't read it. This series is a young adult fantasy series about humans and vampires coexisting, sort of, and there's houses called Houses of Night in different cities all over the world where if you wake up as a vampire, and the way you know that is you have a crescent moon literal tattoo on your forehead, usually blue. That's the symbol of Nyx, the goddess. Then you're going to be a vampire. You've been marked to be a vampire, and you go to school at one of these House of Night schools. Really, really cool premise. Really cool premise. The idea that vampires are created and have to be trained, that's just a really cool premise. They get trained by full vampires. It really breaks the mold of that, what a vampire used to be like in an old vampire novel, which I really like. They're also women, and they can be warriors, but women are the vampires. And it just really had some good opportunity here for strong female characters and some great themes that I feel has fallen flat. So what didn't I like about this book is that I don't know how it happened or when it happened. I can't pinpoint it. Although my guess is somewhere about around book 7 where I dropped back to 3 stars, the characters got annoying. Like almost as if the authors were pushing the fact that they're young adults and teenagers by making them do very immature and stupid things that I have to argue they weren't doing in previous books, which bugs me a little. There's also a sense of you'd want the characters to mature as they go. I mean, we're 10 books into this series, so I know not necessarily a lot of time has passed for them, but we'd want them to mature, especially with some of these things these kids have gone through. We'd want to see them mature, not regress. Zoe is my biggest pet peeve, I think, and the way I noticed this is that in the earlier 2 books, in the first 2 books of the series, I thought Aphrodite was the most obnoxious, immature character we had. Aphrodite has stayed pretty flat throughout this entire series, and at this point, book 10, she's one of the most mature. That's a red flag. If she hasn't matured, but your other characters have regressed to the point where she's now considered the most mature, we have a problem. So that bugged me. But honestly, this would have been a 3-star book for me. It would have kept going on as a 3-star book, just like the others in the series have done for the last few books. Until, and I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm going to be careful. I've thought about how to word this. Towards the end of this book, we get a hint at what our big bad villain's backstory might be. And I hate it. I hate it. I hate the idea that they're saying that something may have happened in her past that turned her into this big bad supervillain. I hate the idea that they're saying that she couldn't recover from this and instead became a villain. And I furthermore hate that we're projecting that idea that if this happens to you, you may become a big bad supervillain to young adults, because there are healthier and better ways to handle what happened to her, which I'm not arguing was awful. It is awful. So normally here's where I say what I would like. I liked the idea for the series when it first started. I won't be finishing. So I went on Goodreads and I looked, and there's an 11th and a 12th. And I read quite a few of the reviews, books 11 and 12, and the overall rating drops for both books. And what I said was hinted at about that villain's backstory is in fact going to be played out more. And so I know I'm not going to like that. I know that's not my thing. I know I don't like that particular topic being used as a tool to make a character bad. So I won't be finishing the series. So I obviously don't want to recommend you start a series that I'm not willing to finish. However, as always, if you've read the book and have a different opinion, or maybe you just agree with my opinion, I would love to hear it in the comments. If you have ideas for who you think should be reading this series, drop it in the comments. But I can't think of anyone I can honestly recommend this series to. Sorry. So a heck of a way to end June. I'm sorry. That's it for me and my books for June. Today is the final Tuesday, so I'll be posting this today. Drop a comment, hit subscribe so you know when I'm back. Keep plotting the path to your dreams, and I will see you next time.